Alright guys, so welcome to the Gamera Q&A. This has been on my Patreon. As always, if you guys would like to be part of the next Q&A, hit the link below, head on to my Patreon, hit the first tier, that'll allow you access to that, episode reviews, movie reviews, things like that. But yeah, I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions for this Q&A. And yeah, I've done, I did Godzilla, I did Kong. Gamera was the next, giant monster Q&A I was going to do. So, by that logic, Ultraman will be somewhere down the road. Not if, more like when. Probably not the next Q&A, I will say that. But anyway, I want to thank everyone who did send in questions, and let's get started with David Deister, who asks, how do you think a Gamera movie in the MonsterVerse could work? See, I think that the best way to do a Gamera film in the MonsterVerse would probably work as that Gamera's been in hibernation all this time, which they've even said that a lot of the Titans are still under, they are very much in hibernation, they're still, asleep. But the thing of it is that a lot of the Titans are still asleep, so you can have that. You can even do the mix, have a little bit of the Heisei era Gamera, and have it be that Gamera has just been, he served the Atlantis. He wasn't. I wouldn't say that in this continuity he wasn't created by Atlantis, but he was Atlantis's guardian. He basically defended them. He was their protector. Maybe that's how, maybe in this in this universe, that's how you get the whole turtle carrying the world mythology through Gamera. Anyway, second question: how would a Power Rangers Gamera crossover be like? Okay, Power Rangers Gamera. I would probably say maybe have the best way to do it is have Rita and Zed make an alliance with Virus, the squid kaiju, or Virus or Zeta, Virus or Zigra. I keep trying to say Zetas. Virus or Zigra as the Gamera villain, and go from there. That's the best way to do it. Even have the other. This would definitely I think Showa Gamera would probably work. Showa era Gamera stuff probably works the best with Power Rangers. So, that's just kind of my loose idea for this. Anyway, third question. Will MS3TK return to the Gamera franchise? I think that depends on rights. I really do think that depends more on, movie rights and things like that. And plus, they've done, I think, all of the Showa Gamera films, and it's really hard to mock. It is incredibly hard to mock the Gamera films of, the Heisei era. But I think you could return to it at some point, or I think they've just dried out the MS3TK, the Mystery Science Theater well on the Gamera films, and they just wanted to put it to bed. Who knows? Because I know they did it for riff tracks too, at least the first film. Anyway, thank you for those questions, David. Moving on now to Tom Hibbert, who asks, "What would you say is your favorite Gamera film?" My favorite Gamera film's probably, and I know this is a basic bitch answer, but it's such a damn good movie, Gamera 3 Revenge of Iris, where the third movie, one of those rare instances where the third movie is the best movie in the franchise. Gamera Revenge of Iris, or Advent of Iris, or whatever, is arguably one of the best kaiju films ever put to film. It is, up there with, Gojira and Godzilla -1, and, it's a beautiful film. It is a spectacular film. Even though Gamera himself doesn't show up a lot, that final fight between him and Iris is amazing, and Iris himself is a phenomenal kaiju, looking like a goddamn angel, almost like Sachiel in some cases, from Evangelion. So, there you go. Second question. Considering Gamera was created by the people of Atlantis, what if Gamera was in the DC universe? I think if they did a Gamera in the DC universe, I think it would be instead of the Kraken, Gamera would be the final line of defense for the people of Atlantis. At least that's how I kind of see it, is that he would basically be the final line of defense, not the Kraken or Topo, the Aquaman's other sea monster that he raised. So I think that would be the case. Anyway, thank you for that question. third question. So, would you consider Gamera to be a kaiju equivalent of a superhero, considering one of his titles is the friend of all children? It depends on which Gamera, really. Like, which incarnation of Gamera we're talking about here. If we're talking, like, the Gamera from, you know, the Showa era, then yeah, he's definitely superhero. But anti-hero territory, and kind of like, well, fuck all of you, I'm kind of doing my job here in the Heisei era. So I think it just depends on which iteration you're talking about when it comes to Gamera. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Thank you for those questions. Tom, moving on now to Imagine8, who asks, grew up on Godzilla franchise, can you give a summary of Gamera and his franchise? Well, there's technically a few iterations. The Showa era is like fun kid movies, and they get progressively worse every time, but they are like dumb, stupid fun. The Heisei era is a trilogy of films that are like on par as some of the greatest kaiju films of all time. It's referred to as the Dark Knight trilogy of kaiju films. And then we have the Millennium era with only one movie, Gamera the Brave, which is, there was a question about that, so that's where I'll give my full thoughts on it. And then you had the recent anime film, film TV series, Gamera Rebirth, which was a 6-part anime series. I think, yeah, it was a 6-part anime series that you can find on Netflix. So, there you go. There's various iterations. Second question. How would each of the Ninja Turtles react to seeing Gamera? I think, Michelangelo would think, like, oh shit, that was the best, that's so cool, we need to get him a giant headband immediately. Leonardo would see him as a great ally. Raphael would be like, oh man, he's gonna fucking wreck shit for us. And Donatello would absolutely want to run tests on Gamera. So that's so there you go. Third question. What Gamera movies would you recommend for newcomers? All of the I'm so tongue-tied. The entire Gamera Heisei trilogy. That's first and foremost, that is like top-tier kaiju level stuff, is the Gamera Heisei trilogy. I cannot recommend that era enough. The Showa Gamera films, like, a lot of them are so bad, like, people would prefer watching Godzilla's Revenge over them. But I would say the ones that you should definitely watch is the original Gamera film, Gamera vs. Barugon, Gamera vs. Gauss, then Gamera vs. Jiger, and probably skip the rest. Probably check out maybe Gamera the Brave if you're interested, but that one's very kid-like. And the Gamera Rebirth trilogy. So there you go, Imagine8. Thank you for those questions. Moving on now to Cyborg 19.99, who asks, Gamera versus Fin Fang Foom, who would win? Gamera versus Fin Fang Foom. Okay. Okay, so how I would do a Gamera versus Fin Fang Foom movie, Gamera versus Fin, not movie, but fight. How would that go? Well, Gamera, it depends on which Gamera. So for sake of argument, let's say Heisei Gamera, because that's the best one. Gamera is intelligent, he's quick-witted, and he learns from his fights. Foom has a human-level intellect and is capable of, like, you know, telepathy, he's capable of, like, fire blasts. He's also gone head-to-head with, like, Thor and the Hulk, and, you know, he's about to go head-to-head with Ultraman in the upcoming crossover, which I think starts this month. So Foom has some serious fighting experience behind him. This dude knows how to fight on a serious like, he knows how to fight. He knows how to pick his battles. But I think Gamera has just taken on much stronger opponents, and the dude tanked a nuclear blast and an asteroid, so I think he's good. Sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, that was the question. Second question. What cartoons, anime, video games, and movies would you cross over with Gamera? Alright. Shit. I would say for cartoons, maybe I'd say Ninja Turtles. I'd also maybe say, yeah, Ninja Turtles. Anime, I'd like to see Gamera and Gundam, just for a change of pace. Video games, probably, War of the Monsters, if you remember that PS1 game, and movie, Pacific Rim. There you go. So thank you for those questions, Cyborg. Moving on to Jason Voorhees 2011, who asks, favorite Showa-era Gamera villain outside of Gauss? Wow, okay. I think without a doubt, if it's not Gauss, I would say my favorite of the Showa-era Gamera villains is Jiger. Jiger, actually no, not Jiger, Guiron. Because I thought it was like, oh yeah, Guiron. Yeah, Guiron is definitely a solid second for me when it comes to... Actually, no, yeah, when it comes to Gamera villains, Gauss, if we're going by Showa era, keep in mind. So it'd be Gauss, then Guiron. So Guiron, if we're talking just Showa villains, because Iris takes the cake. But if we're talking just Showa, it'd be Gauss, then Guiron. Because Guiron's like this big knife-headed, shuriken-shooting monster who laughs after decapitating a space Gauss. How fun is that? He's definitely a solid for me. Anyway, thoughts on Gamera the Brave? Okay, this was the question I was kind of alluding to earlier. Gamera the Brave for me is probably a film that at first I didn't like. At first I did not care for Gamera the Brave, like at all. But as I watched like more of it, as I watched like more of the film, the more I've come back and watched it, I've had a much better experience with the film. I've definitely had more appreciation for it. It's definitely it feels like a show-off film. The roar sucks, let's be real, but there was legal reasons for that. There was also of Gamera's whole thing of kind of looking way more cute. Zetus is a solid villain. I keep trying to, whenever I try to say Zigra, I keep saying Zetus, because Zetus, Zigra, it does sound the same. But Zetus is a pretty solid villain. He walks this line of, like, the horror of the Heisei-era villains with the campiness of the Showa villain. So he's like a nice, like, walk the line between the two. Yeah. So that definitely helped. But it is a great family story. I would say, like, this is a good film to watch with to introduce your kids to Gamera or kaiju in general without them being bored. Anyway, second question. Third question. Could you see Gamera being incorporated into the MonsterVerse, and if so, how would it go? I kind of already talked about this. Sorry, Jason. I already talked about this, so I have to obey the rules, so I gotta skip. But sorry, man. But thank you for the other two questions. Next set of questions come from Bill McLaughlin, who asks, who would you have write a Gamera comic? I know it's kind of a basic answer at this point, but he's just shown himself again and again as a great writer. Daniel Warren Johnson, he did phenomenal. He's been doing phenomenal on Transformers and Beta Ray Bill and all these other great titles. And it's clear that he's a kaiju fan. He recently did some Godzilla art pieces not too long ago, so I think he'd be perfect for balancing that kind of monster action with heart in those comics. The other one would probably be Greg Pak, who has done like Incredible Hulk. He also did Met Cadet U. That's another. Greg Pak would be another. He's also currently writing Darth Vader, so that's another. That's another pick I would have in this collection. Had another one. I had one more writer. James Stokoe. James Stokoe, who a phenomenal Godzilla artist and writer. He wrote Godzilla: The Half-Century War and Aliens: Dead Orbit. So those are my picks right there. Those are my picks right there for my top 3 picks for a Gamera comic. There you go. Second question: what is your favorite era of Gamera? It's Heisei. I've been talking about that all day. Like, it's consistently, it's always been consistently Heisei era. Like I've been saying this whole time, it is the Dark Knight trilogy of Gamera films. Like, it is it's an absolute banger of a series. It's got great interconnecting stories, great effects, and great, like, chemistry with... It's a great human story as it is a monster story. And I think a lot of people forget of how good this series walks the line on that. So there you go, without a doubt. Third question, how would Gamera fare in the Primal Rage universe? Oh, he'd fucking smoke everyone. Like, he's clearly towering over them, and he will show no mercy to any bitches. So I think he would just smoke everyone. I think Gamera would just smoke everyone, to be honest. The only one he'd have problem with is maybe, I don't know, maybe Vertigo? But yeah. Anyway, so thank you for those questions, Bill. Moving on now to Hunter Johnson, who asks, how would a fight between Gamera and Starscream go down? Oh, Starscream's getting clapped. Like, Gamera's 3 times his size, and also there's no weapon that Starscream has that could pierce it, so it's not even a no-brainer. Second question, what would Gamera think of the Sailor Guardians? I think, like, he would see that they could exist they exist as guardians of the universe like him, so I don't think he'd have much of a problem with them. And finally, could Gamera live in the Pokemon universe? Yeah, I think, like, he would probably be fighting, like, some of the legendary Pokemon, like Groudon and Rayquaza, but other than that, yeah, he should be good to go. Alright, thank you for those questions, Hunter. Moving on now to Gordon Rajani, who asks, would you be interested in a second season of Gamera Rebirth? Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping for another season of Gamera Rebirth. I legit want another season of that series. Like, it's not even a question. I really, really want another season of Gamera Rebirth. Like, not even it's not even a question. I want to see them incorporate, like, the Heisei monsters. Yeah. So, yeah. Second question. Did you ever hear about the fan-made sequel to the film Gamera Revenge of Iris, Gamera 4 Truth? I've heard of it, I haven't seen it. I heard it's mixed, but I do want to watch it sometime. Every time I try to watch it, gets taken down, so maybe, I heard, like, it's up on YouTube again, so maybe I'll give it a shot. But yeah, I have heard of it. And third question. If you could have Gamera fight any kaiju other than Godzilla or Kong, who would it be? I would like to see that's a good one. If it isn't Godzilla or Kong Gamera's fighting, because everyone wants Godzilla and Gamera to be a thing. And even Toho is curious about that, of having Godzilla fight Gamera. But yeah, if it's not Godzilla or Kong, I'd probably like to see, like, a Gamera versus Ghidorah fight. That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah, Gamera versus Ghidorah would be really cool. Or Gamera versus Zeton from Ultraman. Those would be pretty cool fights. But anyway, thank you for those questions, Gordon. Moving on now to Nolan Inejo, who asks, how would you create a new villain for Gamera? A new villain for Gamera. I would probably say, like, there was supposed to be a Gamera villain that was supposed to be like a big snake, like a cobra. So maybe do something like that, like, and base it more off of, like, the snake gods of India. Like, give it multiple heads, maybe like a Naga or something, with a little bit of the Hydra in there, or even incorporate some of Orochi from Japanese mythology, too. There you go. Second question. If you were to give Gamera a kaiju ally, what would it look like, powers, and origin? I'm kind of, like, a kaiju ally for Gamera, because he's just kind of solo of a majority of his time as a as a monster, you know, fighting these evils. I kind of am leaning towards, like, maybe, like, some kind of, like something like Talos from Greek mythology, this big bronze statue, and maybe have it that, like, the Atlanteans who survived the fall created another guardian out of, like, magic and engineering to create a new, form of, like, a new guardian for them, so maybe something like that, I don't know. And finally, I know Gamera is supposed to be in Gamera's, I know Gauss is supposed to be Gamera's King Ghidorah, but in my opinion, Gauss is pathetic compared to King Ghidorah. So why is Gauss seen as Gamera's arch nemesis? Probably because he's the most marketable. Plus, he's actually Gauss is kind of scary, because unlike Ghidorah, there's multiple Gauss. And imagine, like, the Titans from Attack on Titan, but they can fly and shoot sonic beams. So Gauss is not pathetic. It's actually kind of horrifying because the thing is, Gauss, even in the Heisei era, it's kind of alluded to. The only way Gamera can defeat Gauss once and for all is if he just fucking goes nuclear and dies, and even then, it's left up to debate. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I do think, like, Gamera is, like, I was just kind of like, Gauss isn't pathetic, so yeah. Anyway, so there you go, guys. That is my Gamera Q&A. I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions, and like I said, if you'd like to be part of the next Q&A, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, where you guys can hit the first tier. That'll allow you access to do so, and then when the next Q&A rolls around, you can be part of that. But other than that, once again, I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions, and hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in Multiverse.